There's a reason why over 1 million people change hard facts every day. We discuss in-depth stories with sources behind the facts.
The Lagos State High Court has convicted, suspended the Chicago certificate story. It's never going away, is it? Show with stories for the day.
You hear diverse voices and opinions.
And she was meeting her friend with her husband, knowing that.
You should not be happy because there is nothing to happy about.
Yeah, it's quite pathetic the way the country is going.
We distinguish each story accurately with analysis.
It's Hard Facts with Marianne Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Do you want to dive into the exciting world of real estate and housing? Welcome to Madam Landlord, where we guide you through the ins and outs of property market. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a first-time buyer, or renting, we have got you covered.
You didn't want to go around looking for a house, and when you found them, they started all this. All of a sudden, the house was changed for nothing. The industry standard is about 10%. You can then the house, for God's sake, it can be controlled.
Join us every fortnight on Wednesdays as we bring you expert advice, exclusive interviews, and insider tips from industry professionals. From negotiation strategies to property management hacks, we will explore it all. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered to make smart decisions when it comes to real estate dreams. We'll help you to navigate the market like a pro. Join us every fortnight from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Wednesday.
This is Madam Landlord.
This is Madam Landlord.
Yes, it's a Wednesday, and every Wednesday, every fortnight on Wednesdays, we get to talk about property. We get to talk about lands, renting, real estate in general, and all you need to know, whether it's the legalities, the intricacies, whether it be mediation, whatever you need to know. On Madam Landlord. And today I'm bringing back Olamide Onifade, who is a real estate lawyer and also a family lawyer. I think it's the best thing that she did for herself to be, a family lawyer and a real estate lawyer. So everything comes in handy, and you can switch on the lawyer for family. You can switch it off and then be a real estate lawyer. I mean, it's amazing. Olamide, so good to have you join us. Welcome on the show. I'm excited.
Hello, Marianne.
It's good to
my
see
pleasure
you.
to be here.
Yes. Do me a favor. Can you move back a little bit because I can't see some parts of your head. Yes, it's cut up. Good.
There you go.
All right. So the reason why I'm excited about this conversation is because a lot of people do things when they're in love, when they're in relationships. For some people, it's their love language to gift, their partners certain properties, sometimes jewelry, sometimes cars, sometimes land. I know a very famous rapper in the United States. On her husband's birthday, she bought him a piece of land and put it in his name. And many people have also done that. Some women in today's world will say, if you love me, buy me a piece of land. In those days, they'll say, buy me a bada. Now they say, buy me a piece of land or put my name on, the property. But I want us to go down to the basics. What is wrong with buying or what's the issue around spouses owning property together? The legal implications on how best to handle mutual interest by couples, especially when it comes to property. I read a piece that a lawyer says that women should stop buying properties in their husband's name because, in some parts of the world, they say women cannot own property. And so what they do, it's their property, but they buy it in their husband's name.
I'm not sure it's in Nigeria. I'm not sure there's any law in Nigeria that will preclude a woman from owning property.
Well, but there are traditional laws. There's so many parts of this country, and you know it, where women are not allowed to own property. You do know that.
And you need to understand that if there's any native law and custom that is repugnant to natural justice, fairness, and equity, it will not stand.
Interesting.
Once it breaches the fundamental human rights of every person in Nigeria, under the fundamental human rights of everybody in Nigeria, you're entitled to own property, whether you're female or male, and you can't be discriminated upon. So there's nothing that impedes a woman from owning property.
Lovely.
In Nigeria.
Say it very loudly for those in the back.
There's nothing that impedes a woman in Nigeria from owning property in her name.
Lovely. But let's talk about this whole diciness around, spouses owning, property, and the legal implications. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so what's the question exactly? So where do I start from?
Start from the basics. Now you've already told us that the law supports male or female owning property, but then
Yes.
again, because like I said, because we live in a country where there's some unspoken rules and people have ordinarily adhered to it. So I think you're the one who told me a story about a woman who bought land and her husband built on the land, and when they separated, there was this drama about who owns the house and who owns the land. So let's start from there.
Okay, there are two ways that you can own property in Nigeria. Joint property. Excuse me. So you can either own it as a joint tenant or tenant in common. If you own property as a tenant in common, then it means that both, if you are two, the maximum that you can own property with somebody, four. You have to be four. The maximum. Now, if you own a property as, okay, let me start from joint tenant. There are two ways. So you can only own it joint tenant or tenant in common.
Olamide, you're breaking up and we can't hear you.
Joint, they are meeting.
I think it's from us.
What did you say?
I'm sorry, I think it was from our end, but yeah, you're back now. We couldn't hear anything you said.
Okay. I said there are two ways in Nigeria wherein you can own property with somebody jointly. In most cases, couples owning property together. So if you choose to own a property with your husband, with your spouse, as joint tenant, what would happen is that if the husband or the wife, whichever way, if one of the spouse gives a substantial contribution, maybe probably 90% of the purchase price, and the other party contributes 10% of the purchase price, right? The law is that they are joint, regardless of the size or the significance of their contribution, if you own it as a joint tenant. And another thing about owning as a joint tenant is that winner takes all, in the sense that the last survival takes everything. So if two people own that property and the wife dies first, everything will go to the husband. You cannot even will it to your children. You can't will it to a third party.
I see.
It is only the last survival that takes all. So it's called the right of survivorship. So if you are owning the property as joint tenants, but if you are owning it as tenants in common, then both of you have a variable share in accordance to this contribution. So if you contributed 60% and the other person contributed 40%, you will own the size of your contribution. Now, how do you determine if you own it as a joint tenant or tenant in common? It depends on the wording on your deed of assignment. So if you are owning property with somebody, you have to be very clear. Go and read your deed of assignment. How was it worded? Because the law leans in favor of a joint tenant, of joint tenancy.
I see.
So if there's nothing that signifies that we intend to own it as tenants in common, then the law presumes that you own it as joint tenant. And what that simply means is that the size of your contribution doesn't matter. And the last person who survives takes everything. So you cannot give it to your children. You cannot put it under your will. You cannot put it in trust. It belongs to both of you in equal shares. So that is the way you can own property in Nigeria as couples.
So most important thing here in this particular statement that you've made is that we need to consider what the wording of the deed of assignment is. And so when you receive that deed of assignment, both you and your spouse need to read the text and understand it, because it determines whether you are co-occupants or
tenants in common.
Tenants in common or joint tenants.
I said, if there's no word of severance, if there's no word to show that you intend to own it as tenants in common, if there's a dispute about that tenant, about that ownership, the courts will lean towards joint tenancy. There's a presumption that the law leans towards joint tenancy, except you can show that you intended to own it as tenants in common. Now, if you are owning property jointly with a spouse or somebody else, it is very important that when you're taking legal advice or you're giving instruction to your solicitor, please make it very clear how you want to own the property. So it must be clear. It's not when you receive it that you give the instruction. You give the instruction prior. So you let your lawyer know that you intend to own it in equal shares as joint tenants, or you intend to own it as tenants in common, reflecting each other's contribution. So that's what is imperative. But if there's nothing in your deed of assignment suggesting that you want to own it according to the shares contributed, you will own it as tenants joint tenants. And it's very imperative to understand that you cannot will your share of that property to a third person, even the children of both parties. You cannot. So it goes to the last survivor.
Okay, so in a case where, for example, the wife dies or the one partner dies, it goes automatically to the only survivor. But when that survivor dies, who does he will it to?
Yes, he cannot will it. Yes, he cannot give it out.
I see. But he cannot. He cannot will it.
Will.
So he cannot will it while the other survivor is still there.
No.
I see.
Well, no, you can't do that. However, if you want to convert joint tenancy to tenant in common, what you can do is during the lifetime of the other person, you can choose to sell your share, and it automatically converts to to tenant in common. You can also do a deed reflecting that you've changed it to tenancy in common.
Okay.
But that is during the lifetime of the co-owner.
Yeah.
It can't be done after.
I see.
You must reflect it during the lifetime of the co-owner.
Yes, I needed us to get to that point where we're certain that that's going to be about, because you see, like I said, people will be confused that, so you cannot touch it, you can't touch it at all, it has to go to this person. But now that you've given us that caveat, yes, so the person has to be alive, so you have that conversation with him and put out the deed. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Let's talk about the cultural appropriations or cultural misgivings or understanding, unspoken laws of land or property ownership that leads to problems, later on in life. For example, the case that you told me of. For example, I buy property because where I come from, I'm just saying, I'm not talking about me, I'm just saying, for example, where I come from, a woman is not allowed to own property. So I keep buying it in my husband's name. But then we get a divorce or a separation, and he's claiming all of those things. Can you hear me?
Marianne, are you telling me that 2024 in your culture, women are not allowed to own property?
You didn't hear what I said. You didn't hear what I said. I said, not me. I'm giving you an example that there are cultures, and I'm sure that when we open up the phone lines, people will tell you women are not allowed to get, own property or land.
That's a breach of their fundamental human rights.
We'll get to that point. But so I'm giving you a scenario. For example, I buy properties because I'm not allowed to outrightly own them where I come from. I buy them in my husband's name, but then we get a separation or a divorce, and I want those properties back. And then he says, well, you bought it in my name. It's mine. I'm sorry. There's nothing you can do about it. And then I come to you, Barrister Olamide. How do you help me? What would be
things you can do about it?
Please tell us, because I'm sure that there are a lot of people on this table.
Okay. When it comes to matrimonial property, the way the law views matrimonial property is different from the way the courts would view a property that is under general, civil litigation in law. In land. Now, matrimonial property, the view of the court, right, is that you can only own it, right, according to your contribution to the property. So if you're a woman and you're contesting during divorce that you have a right, you have an interest in the, matrimonial property, you need to show your contribution to that property, which has to be direct and substantial.
How?
So you must show that, okay. So say, for instance, the purchase price of the property amounts to about 100 million. And you as a woman, you're not contesting that you have an interest in that property. Probably you want the court to order a sale or partition or any of that sort. You must prove to the court that you had a direct contribution to that property. And also, it's significant. So say, for instance, you contribute about 40 million naira towards the purchase price. That is significant enough. But if you are showing that you contributed about 500,000, that might be insignificant, right? And that your contribution must also be direct. But in recent times, right, the court is now leaning towards giving credence to indirect contribution.
How?
Because if you're asking women, and I'll say women, in most cases, they are the disadvantage of the couple. Women fall into this category a number of times. I can contribute towards our matrimonial property, right? Indirectly. I can give it to my husband. I can channel it through him. But in most cases, nobody goes into a marriage and start keeping receipts of every transaction in the hope that once we want to divorce, this is what would happen. A number of times, a lot of people don't keep records. So now saying that during a divorce, you must show all the records of your contribution is very unfair. So the court now is leaning towards indirect contribution, recognizing that you can indirectly contribute. It doesn't have to be direct. Now, the court is even now taking into cognizance direct contribution towards that is not financial, that is not monetary.
Non-financial contributions.
So for some couples, they might... What did you say?
I'm saying non-financial contributions.
The leaning of the court before was it has to be financial contribution, which is direct and significant. Now, the approach of the court in recent times is now to recognize that women can also, or spouses can also contribute indirectly. And it doesn't have to be financial now. So take, for instance, there's a family, the husband and the wife, they get married. The wife is an architect. The husband is a banker. And they have an agreement that, why don't you stay at home to take care of the children, nurture the children while I go to work and I make the financial provisions. You stay at home and nurture the children. Now, this arrangement now goes on for 25 years. At that time, the woman got married, probably she was 30. They now decide to divorce after 4 children, after 25 years. Maybe all 4 children are out of the university, and the woman is now very close to 60. She's never worked in her life. But the husband has been the one who has worked and has acquired about 6, 7 properties. Now they want to divorce. You're saying that if the court is still very resolute on direct and substantial contribution, it means that don't forget that the woman did not work a day in that marriage. She stayed at home, catering to the children. And that gave the man the opportunity to go out and work. After 25 years of marriage, 4 grown children, never worked, never owned her money. She now wants to divorce, and you're not asking her that, where is her direct contribution to all of this? That would be unfair, because she contributed indirectly by manning the home, by raising the children, sacrificing her career, sacrificing her life. At that age, do you think she still has any prospect of going back into employment?
No.
How will she sustain her life? So now the courts are now looking, so that is indirect contribution. So as a woman, you should be able to say, yes, I did not contribute 1 naira, but I contributed indirectly by being the homemaker. For some women, right? And I'm saying women, not because I am being biased, but in most cases, the high percentage is always women fall into the trap. Because naturally, childcare would, especially when women of childbearing age, it will affect your career one way or the other.
Okay.
No doubt about that.
Okay.
Now, some women might even be in employment, right? But okay, so say for instance, when the husband is building the family home or wants to acquire a property, the woman at that time might say, okay, you face that property and build it.
Olamide, we have
I
to go
will
on a
face
quick
this
break.
Fire on! Are you ready to show up and show out? So, whether you're nominated, performing, or just enjoying the action, fire on with your Super Commando energy drink. Fire on at the 10th edition of the African Magic Viewers' Choice Awards on the 11th of May 2024 at Okon Hotel, Victoria Island, Lagos. Super Commando energy drink. Fire on.
You define better odd. I be you one play cause over 1.5. I be you one bet say both seem no go score at all. Yeah, we get better payout to one. No worry, we there for you. Our odd chabrat out. You know the feeling show. Oh lo lo, we there for you. Oh, we there for you. You see for bet baba, you feel we money. Bet baba, cash out today easy. Or bet baba, we get online games for you to play. Oh God, yeah. We get better bonus. Money we know that yeah, now bet baba day so. Cash out no sharp. Oh darling, no. Welcome to Bet Baba.
Register now on betbaba.ng. Not for people under 18.
On the Morning Crossfire with me, Kofi Bartels. You have the big names, the most pressing issues, and the sharpest conversations.
We must leave that place of talking into the space of doing.
Nothing that's paying through their nose, and you are telling them after training they can't migrate. I will not be part of those who will give soft landing to these guys who are running the affairs of this country.
People are dying every day in an hour. People just go and come out and read out stories to us. Come on, Kofi.
We must step beyond the talk. We have the analysis.
Join us as we dissect the headlines, bring you exclusive interviews, and dive deep into the heart of the matter. The big conversations live here.
Join Kofi Bartels on the Morning Crossfire, weekdays 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. only on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
For how much? That's how you react when you see really high prices for rides. But there's no reason to worry, because with InDrive, you can always offer a fair deal and not just hope for it. Use InDrive and negotiate for the most fair price for you. InDrive, people driven.
The InDrive online passenger transportation aggregator is not a taxi service. Find more information at www.indrive.com.
What takes a plate of jollof rice to the next level of goodness? Is it when it is cooked with no seasoning cubes for that sumptuous taste? Or when you serve it with correct Nigerian salad, cabbage, carrot, lettuce, and a bit of kidney beans?
It's both. Season your jollof with the rich taste of Knorr cubes and serve with plenty of vegetables. So, go ahead and elevate your meals. Today, eat for good.
New Lafarge water shield cement now confirm. Number one waterproof cement for Naija. Yeah. Ogbonge cement for waterlogged areas. Number one waterproof cement for Naija. Yeah. New Lafarge water shield cement number one. New Lafarge waterproof cement now confirm. One time. Put full stop for water wahala. With Lafarge water shield cement, water go collect. If water jam house, foundation and basement to call, no shaking. Ogbonge cement for waterlogged areas. Number one waterproof cement for Naija. Lafarge, not confirm. Cement, new Lafarge water shield cement not confirm.
Put full stop for water wahala.
Mommy, my teacher said 90% of my brain will develop by the time I am 5.
Really? What else did she say?
She said I need iron in my food for my brain to grow well.
Oh, very true. And that's why I give you Cerelac Junior every day, which provides half of your daily iron needs.
And Cerelac Junior tastes so good.
Cerelac Junior with Iron Plus. It's all good, Mom.
on the Morning Crossfire with me, Kofi Bartels. You have the big names, the most pressing issues, and the sharpest conversations.
We must leave the of talking into the space of doing.
Nothing that paying through their nose and you're telling them after training they can't migrate. I will not be part of those who will give soft landing to the guys who are running the affairs of this country.
People are dying every day in an hour. People just go in and come out and read out stories to us. Come on, Kofi.
We must step beyond the talk. We have the analysis.
Join us as we dissect the headlines, bring you exclusive interviews, and dive deep into the heart of the matter. The big conversations live here.
Join Kofi Bartels on the Morning Crossfire, weekdays 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. only on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Welcome back to your number one talk, news, and sports station. This is Nigeria Info. Nigeria Info.
There's a reason why over 1 million people tune into Hard Facts every day. We discuss in-depth stories with sources behind the facts.
The Lagos State High Court has convicted, suspended the Chicago certificate story. It's never going away, is it? Show with stories for the day.
You hear diverse voices and opinions.
And she was meeting campaign with her husband, knowing that.
You should not feel happy because there is nothing to happy about. Yeah, it's quite pathetic the way the country is going.
We distinguish each story accurately with analysis.
It's Hard Facts with Marianne Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
This is Madam Landlord.
This is Madam Landlord.
Yes, indeed, it is Madam Landlord, and today we're talking about buying property with a spouse. All you need to know, the legalities, the legalese, let me put it that way, because Olamide has been telling us you have to look at the deed, you have to, hey, God. In my mind now, I just want to buy property. I'm not thinking about all of this. But then, it's important to take lots of these things into consideration. And I know that you have so many questions. The questions are already coming in. What is Olamide saying? What? How do you mean? Someone said, so you mean that I cannot buy property and do it in my husband's name? When I want to collect it to be Wahala? Yes. Anyway, you can ask questions. You can send your comments in. Olamide says, look, if you come from a place and they say you are not allowed to buy own property, it's against your fundamental human rights. In other words, you do not know the law. The law allows male, female from any part of this country to have access to purchase land or property in your name, whether you're a man or woman. But I'm lucky. I'm from one of those places where women are allowed to do whatever they want, including owning property, buying land, your family willing property to you as first child. It doesn't matter whether you're married or not. I'm excited about that part. But my guest is still here. Olamide Onifade is a real estate lawyer. She's also a family lawyer. And we're looking at this issue of buying property in your spouse's name or buying property together. Olamide, I did tell you earlier on that a lawyer was interviewed about, this issue of property. And he said something very intriguing that he said women should not buy property in their spouse's name. And he gave reasons why. Do you support him and that position that he's taken?
Okay, Marianne, I was going, I can say I was beckoning to you. The question you asked me was, in two places. And the first question was jointly and now the woman advancing money to the husband. So I was going to go into that.
Good.
So give me some few minutes to go into that. Now, a woman, the way the law views, right? A woman who gives money to her husband to acquire a property is different from the way the law views a man who buys a property and puts the name of his wife solely on that property. Now, if you are a man and you buy a property for yourself, but you put your wife's name solely, means that it only reflects the name of your wife. It is presumed, right, by the law that she owns that property. And that there's something called the presumption of advancement, that it was intended, right, to be given to your wife for her own advancement. Because don't forget that we're in a patriarchal society where it is expected that men are to cater for their wives. So if you're a man who advances a property to your wife, the law presumes that you gave her. However, if a woman comes to court to say, I own the property, but I bought it in the name of my husband, there is no presumption of advancement in favor of that man. So the court would, if there's proof, if the woman can bring proof that she actually advanced the money to the husband, the law would rather see it as a resulting trust. And what that means would be that the property is held for the woman
in trust.
She has the beneficial interest in the property while the man retains the legal title, but the property belongs to the woman. So the law, if that woman can prove, right, that was giving the property, the money or the property was in the name of the husband, probably out of, she was one that advanced the money. Once there's cogent proof, there'll be no presumption of advancement.
Oh, lovely.
But conversely, if you look at it from the husband's side, it's only when the husband can disprove it. And you have to disprove it with a lot of proof factor. Why the law should not hold that property was intended to be a gift. So all is not lost as a woman if you advance money to your husband. But there are a lot of downsides to that. You don't have to go through, don't put yourself in a situation where you have to go through litigation and you start explaining and explaining and explaining. So the first thing is, in the first place, don't even do it. Except you intend to gift your husband that property. If it's not intended to be a gift, you should retain it in your name. Make sure the conveyance is in your name. And I'll tell you the downsides. In the event of death of that man, all that property will form part of the estate of that man, regardless of the fact that you advance the money or not. So, if the man now has children outside of wedlock, outside of your marriage to him, they will be beneficiaries to that estate.
Wow.
They'll be beneficiary to that property. Yes, because the husband owns it. It will go through probate and all of that. You cannot administer that property, regardless of the fact that you own the property as the wife. It would form part of the estate of the man. Now, if your marriage to that man is under native law and custom, I've always said this on radio and I've said it everywhere. Under native law and custom of most cultures in Nigeria, inheritance is according to bloodline, not marriage. So if you are a spouse that advanced property to your husband, if he dies intestate, that means without making a will, and your marriage was not under the statute, it was not a statutory marriage, the estate will be administered under the native law and custom of that man. And as a widow, you do not have any entitlement to a property under native law and custom. It's only the children of the marriage. It's only the children of the man, not children of the marriage. So if the man has children by another woman, they will partake in that estate, whether you were the one that gave the money or not. Wow. Now, another instance is the man can use the money. He can use the property. He can sell it. He can sell it off completely because he has the legal title in his name. I will deal with the person that has legal title. I will not deal with madam. I will deal with the man who wants to sell. Yes. Number two, he can use the money. You can use the property for mortgage. You can mortgage the property because the bank is interested in who owns the property. And once it reflects the name of the man, that's the person that the purchaser will be dealing with, not you. So these are part of the downsides. Of course, legally, if you want to go to court and challenge, then you have to bring out proofs upon proofs and upon proofs. So to save yourself that headache, why don't you put it in your name? At worst, at most, it can reflect both names. Both names of the, but don't forget, it depends on how you own it. If you own it as tenant in common, then both of you will own equal shares of the property. If you own it as joint tenants, you own it jointly. So if madam dies before the husband, the husband would automatically survive. The right of survivorship would work in his favor.
Yeah.
He then can now administer that property on his own death to his
children,
own, his heirs, his beneficiaries.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily mean part of the marriage. Now, if you even marry under the statute, if your marriage is under the Marriage Act, and the man dies intestate, the estate of the man will be subject to the administration of the state law of the state where he resides. Now, the widow is only entitled to 1/3 of the property of the man. The children are entitled to 2/3. Now, the children don't necessarily mean the children of the marriage between the woman and the man. It would reflect all the children of that man, regardless of if they were born within wedlock or outside of wedlock. So the children from a concubine would also they'll be beneficiaries of that property because it belongs to their father.
Olamide, I need to take calls. I need to take calls because I have very little time.
All right.
Okay. We've heard so much that we're just like maybe we have to have a rethink of sorts about property buying and being smart when we're taking those choices. And talking about buying or
being a beneficiary,
you need to be properly educated enough to know what to do. So
so Lagos, speaking of being a beneficiary of good things, are you interested in studying and working in the UK? AHZ Nigeria, a top representative of UK universities, will be hosting UK education fairs in Lagos. Date Saturday, 4th May 2024. Venue is Ibis Ikeja Hotel, 23 Toyin Street. Take advantage of amazing discounts on tuition from more than 140 of our university partners in the UK. Receive on-the-spot offers and direct counseling from your choice university. For more information, call 0903 212 9233, 0903 212 9233, or just send a message to bdm.nigeria@ahzassociates.co.uk. That is bdm.nigeria@ahzassociates.co.uk.
All right. So if you want to get more information, because you see, people like Olamide have been properly trained in the legal world, and I know that she's an abroad somebody. She has gone to the abroad to learn law there. She has learned law in Nigeria, and so nobody can take her by surprise. But it's very important, Lagos. I see the phone lines are blinking already. They have so many questions to ask. I'm gonna open up the phone lines. I want you to ask questions, even if it means us taking more questions next week on this issue. But unfortunately, next week we're doing glass ceiling. But I need you to ask questions where you do not understand, because this is very important. Very, very important when you're buying or acquiring property. 0700 993 993 993. You could join the conversation. 0201 465 7190. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon, Anne Pino.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon to the wonderful barrister.
Yes, you have 60 seconds, so you have to stay on the point.
Yes, let me run. The question is on the indirect contribution. She made mention of where the man works and the woman works. Eventually, the woman dropped for the man now to advance in his career. Along the line, something happened. So I want to understand in a case where the man married an unemployed woman in the first place, and all she did was to contribute. All her contribution was to give birth to children in that marriage. Eventually, she was even the one to file for divorce. What happens now? Because she didn't have anything at stake to compare to the other one who had unemployment and dropped for the man to advance in his career before he was able to get the 7 houses. So I want to get better understanding on what is the position of that unemployed woman who never had any indirect contribution except for the child given in the marriage. Thank you very much.
Olamide, I told you this was coming. Oh, yeah.
I understand how passionately he feels. But the truth is, childbirth is a contribution to the family life. So that is her contribution. However, the fact that she chose not to work and become a burden to the man can also be a fact that the man can advance. And it can actually affect the weight of what the court will give her.
Really?
Yes. No, all these things, you have to put fact forward and advance it. The court will not go and solicit for you. You will have to bring your evidence and advance to the court. And in the area of family law, especially when it comes to property settlements, spousal maintenance, and all of that, the judge is given a wide discretion. So they use their senses to apply to the, and no case is the same.
Wow.
Cases are different. So if you feel strongly that the woman was more of a burden in the marriage than being a value, you can advance that argument, and it can actually tilt in the favor of the man.
This is sending an SOS to all Oga wives. You say you don't want to work. I don't want to work. I want to be a kept woman. I want to be Oga wife, chief wife. This is SOS to you.
Well, it depends. If they have an agreement and it works for them, fine.
What if the man now proves that she has always wanted to be a girl wife? I tried in the middle of the relationship to beg her to go and work. She refused to work. Is this not going to work against her?
Because we also consider her age. If you are a 35-year-old woman with 2 children, an architect, and you refuse to work, the court will not tell the man to be maintaining you for the rest of his life, and the marriage is short. Probably the marriage was just for 3 or 4 years, and you now want to claim from the property. It might not work in your favor because the court will look at a lot of circumstances.
I see.
But where the marriage is longer, where the length of the marriage is a consideration. The contribution and the sacrifices of that spouse is a consideration. So it's a potpourri of a lot of considerations.
Absolutely. Let me take another call.
If you can advance that you have substantial indirect contribution as a woman, you will get something.
Okay.
And something very substantial.
Hello, welcome to Hard Facts. Oh, sorry about that. Do call us back if that was you. Hello, welcome to Madam Landlord.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is the one of Odobolu.
Is it? You have 60 seconds, quickly.
It's too small.
Please, you don't have time. We don't have time. Quickly.
You see, I want to ask this question. Presently, my wife has a land, and I have my own separately. Which person is it? The both land, is it for the family, or my wife has a upper hand on her own side? I don't know. I don't really understand.
Okay, Olamide, over to you.
It belongs to each of them individually. That's all. Simple. So, and they can choose to how do I call it?
Share the property.
Deal with the property as they deem fit. Yes.
Okay. So, but it belongs to them individually.
Individually.
It's not your property. It's your wife's own. Hello.
Hello, madam.
Good evening. What's your name, sir? Where are you calling from?
My name is Okon. I'm calling from Lekki.
I really can't hear you.
I'm calling from Lekki here.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, my barrister, I greet you.
Good afternoon, sir. Good evening, sir.
I bought a property, a piece of land, that is, and I'm the one that buy the property from owners, and I get the receipt as the buyer. But when I bring out the name on the property, one bears my name, the other bears my wife's name. How do we separate?
Wait. Let me understand. Hold on. So you went to buy a property, but you bought it in your wife's name, and then you bought another in your own name.
I bought it in my name. Primary receipt has my name.
Okay.
But the letter of
the deed of assignment,
allocation,
yes,
comes in her name.
Oh, in her. Oh, so now you want to know who really owns the property? I see.
Yes.
I see. Thank you. Olamide, this is jam question, but I'm guessing it's easy. The original
question is very simple.
Yeah, he said the original receipt has his name because he paid for it and he has his name, but then the deed of assignment does have his wife's name.
Okay. Now, I said if the property is in the name of the woman, there's a presumption of advancement in favor of his wife.
Okay.
However, that presumption can be rebutted by cogent reasons. So in this case, it looks like a case of mistake. So if he can say, yes, it did come in his name. So if he's alive now, he can reflect the change now. There's no dispute now. So if he thinks that he did not give his wife outrightly, then why can't he just reflect the change now? Because everything doesn't have to be litigated upon. Don't wait until when you have issues. But if you wait till when they have issues, God forbid, he has to prove that it wasn't an outright gift. He did not have that intention. It came as a mistake. And I want to believe that can displace that presumption of advancement.
Okay. Let me see if I can read some messages on social media. But before we do that, today is the day of the jackpot for one play. And all the workers, there are millions and millions to be won, because you can even buy one small plot of land and then put it in your name, right?
Exactly. You are talking in spirits, Marianne. Who better to win this money? You deserve it, Lagos. So get ready to win big with one play on the 1st of May, which is today. Workers' Day jackpot happening here on Nigeria Info. Okay, you can come and grab your own share of 3.5 million naira. Yes, that's enough to buy land. You bought from the 29th of April to the 1st of May automatically qualifies you for today's jackpot, okay? And if you've not played, all you have to do is go to www.oneplay.ng, pick your station Nigeria Info, play with as little as 500 naira and in a few seconds. That's it, your money is in the draw. Or you can dial *347 *880 *3 hash, *347 *880 *3 hash. Remember, whether you play on the website, which is www.oneplay.ng, or you dial the code, your chances of winning are equal. Okay, and if you play, please stay close to your phone so that you don't miss the winning call. The money not pass you by this time. Please stay close to your phone. Remember, Lagos, play responsibly, and the more you play, the better your chances of winning. Don't say we didn't do anything good for you. Well, we're trying to help you here. At least, Marianne, you could have won.
I could have won a lot.
But
a lot. But okay. I'm just, I'm generous. I want you
very
guys to...
gracious people.
Yes, it's just 500 naira. Play. Be a winner like me. I'm already a winner. That's why I do hard facts, Anyway, before we wrap things up here, Olamide Onifade is still here. I want to give one question from WhatsApp. Somebody says, Olamide, what if you buy a property in your child's name and later find out that through DNA that the child is not yours? I beg. How then go do the property? Olamide, we have 1 minute before we wrap things up here. Go ahead. Did you hear the question?
Yes. And you can always reflect the change. They can always...
Oh my goodness, we lost that connection with Olamide. Hopefully we can get her back to join us, because that's a very interesting question.
Very, very
if you bought a child a property and then you realize after DNA that this child is not your child, what you gonna do? When they come for you? Olamide, in 50 seconds, because we have to go.
Yes, I didn't hear that.
I said we have just 50 seconds before we go, so go ahead.
No, I've answered the question. It can always change if the paternity fall. If he realizes that the child doesn't belong to him, then that gift was given to that child under the mistaken belief of his paternity. And now that it's clear that it doesn't belong to, then it can reflect a change in the deed of assignment.
Very simple and straight to the point. Well, Olamide, I have so many more questions, but we don't have time and we have to go. Olamide,
we can do it again.
We'll do it again. Definitely. We'll bring it back. We'll bring it back by popular demand, because I have so many questions on WhatsApp, but we cannot attend to them. Olamide Onifade is a real estate lawyer and also a family lawyer. So if you have family issues, hey, we can. In fact, I think I'm bringing Olamide back sometime in 2 weeks to talk about something with the family, under family law. And I'm sure that you guys will be very interested in that conversation. But thank you, Olamide, for joining us. And always a pleasure to have you. There's always something to learn from these conversations.
Thank you very much, Marianne.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you again.
Soon, in person. Well, we've got to go on a break, Lagos. On the other side of the clock, I did promise you guys that we're going to be talking about the Africa Free Trade Zone and the push for a unified currency, especially by the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. But can it work? And every time I hear about a unified currency, I think about something really terrible. And I don't know why. But then we'll talk about it because my guest is going to join us. Has Africa come of age to get it to a point where we can have that whole unified currency? Have we gotten to the point? We'll be right back.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria